The first question, and this will probably get asked in every single job interview that you go to, and it's tell me about yourself. I have been a recruiter for almost 20 years, and in that time, I have sat in a hell of a lot of job interviews, and the same types of questions get asked in pretty much all of them. So I thought I'd pull together this video, which are 10 of the most common job interviews and the best way to answer them. Because these questions, you will be asked at least a few of them in your next job interview, because they always get asked. So I'm going to go through each of the 10 questions and the best way to answer them. For those of you who've never come across me before or don't know who I am, my name's Lee. I've been in the recruitment and talent acquisition space for almost 20 years. I set up this channel and my blog and all of my other social media networks to just give people really no nonsense job search advice. So hit the follow button or the subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. And then check out the link in my profile as well, where you'll get links to like free CV templates, free job search guides, and loads of other free stuff. So let's get into the questions. The first question, and this will probably get asked in every single job interview that you go to, and it's tell me about yourself. Now, most people overthink the answer to this question. They're not trying to trick you. They're not trying to trip you up. It's just a nice way to ease you into the interview. It's a little bit like an icebreaker question. Now, the biggest mistake that most people make is they overthink it and they end up speaking for way too long. Literally, all the interviewer is looking for in this question is just a very quick summary of who you are, what you've done, what you've achieved, and a little bit of personal information never hurts either. And really, it should only last about 2 minutes. If you start rambling on and start trying to sell your skills and sell your experience, you're just going to lose the room. You don't need to sell your skills and sell your experience. They already know about that because they've read your CV. It's just an icebreaker question. So, as an example, this is how I would answer that question. I've been in recruitment for almost 20 years. I left uni, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I fell into agency recruitment. I did that for about 18 months, 2 years. I was pretty good at it, but I just really didn't enjoy the business development side of it. So I left. I went on, I did a few different types of recruitment marketing roles, and then I went on to co-found a recruitment technology business, where we raised over £1 million in funding. We scaled the business, and it was doing really, really well. But then my daughter was born and my priorities changed. I realised that the life of an entrepreneur wasn't for me, and I'd always fancied a moved in-house. You know, an in-house recruitment role was an itch I really needed to scratch. So I moved in-house. Since moving in-house, I've built recruitment teams, I've led recruitment teams all over the world, and I am still really as geeky and love TA and recruitment as much as I did back then. Outside of work, I've got 2 kids. They keep me pretty busy. And I've got 2 cats. One's called Elsa and one's called Anna. That's what happens when you let your 3-year-old daughter name your cats. And that's pretty much how I would answer that question. It's just a very short icebreaker question to ease you into the interview. But it also sets you up for the interviewers to ask follow-up questions. So they might want to ask me more about the business that I started, or they might want to ask me more about my agency days, or they may want to ask me more about the recruitment teams that I've built and led over the years, or they may ask me what I love most about TA. I'm setting them up to ask me more questions. But that's all they're looking for. Don't overthink it, but prepare an answer to that question before every single interview, because there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be asked it. Now, the next most common question, and again, you will probably get asked this one, so it makes sense to prepare an answer for it, is what is your biggest weakness? Now, personally, I hate this question. I don't think it really tells you anything. But the reason why interviewers ask this question is because they want to make sure that, one, you understand that you're not perfect, and you've got some self-awareness, but then are you being proactive in taking steps to improve that weakness? And that's all that they're really looking for. And as long as it's not directly related to the job, it kind of really doesn't matter what weakness you choose. So in my role, for example, it would be terrible for me to say, I'm really terrible at speaking to people on the phone because it's a core part of being a recruiter. Or one of my biggest weaknesses is that I'm terrible at getting into difficult conversations because again, it's a key part of a recruiter. But as long as it's not, as long as it's outside of like the key requirements for the role, it kind of doesn't really matter what weakness you choose. Here's an example of one that I've used in the past, and that is I'm really not great at public speaking. You know, the thought of getting up in front of a few hundred people, in front of a team, and delivering a talk or a speech, and engaging those people is always something that, you know, I've not been particularly very good at and not really enjoying. I was got quite nervous before doing it. But what I've started to do is I've started to look for opportunities to speak at events, because the more I do it, the better I'll get at it and the more comfortable I'll feel doing it. So I have spoke at recruitment events on stage. I've been part of panel discussions. I've done a few webinars. I've done a few podcasts, and I am getting more comfortable in doing it. That's one example. Another example you might give is I'm not very good at delegating. I've always been under the impression that it's probably quicker and easier for me to just do tasks myself rather than delegate it to people in my team. But what I very quickly realised is that one, I become a bottleneck and things don't get done. But then also two, I'm potentially taking away learning opportunities from the people in my team. So what I've started to do is I've looked at tasks and I've thought to myself, do I really need to do this? Or is this a good opportunity for somebody else in my team to do it? And I've started to be really conscious of what work I should delegate and what work is best that I do. And that's it. Kind of doesn't really matter what the weakness is. They just want a grasp that you have got some self-awareness and you are taking some proactive steps to improve on that weakness. The next question, again, you will probably get, and it's a terrible question, is why do you want to work here? Now, the best way to answer that is to make sure you've done your research before the interview. Like, there must be a reason why you've applied. And for most people, the answer is, look, I want more money, or I want money, or I just need a job and I don't care where it is. But that's not what they're looking for. They want to know that you've done your research and that you're taking it seriously. Because what they don't want to do is get all the way through the interview process, get to the point where they really like you and they want to offer you a job, only to find out that you weren't really that keen in the first place. They want people who are keen to work there, because they don't want to waste their own time. So all you need to do for this one is do your research beforehand and find something either in the job description or on the company website that is a reason why you want to work there. So again, to give you an example, in one of the jobs I've applied for before, they asked me why I wanted to work there, and it was, well, I know that you are building a function from scratch. I've never built a function from scratch. It would be a really great learning opportunity for me. I think I've got the skills and the experience to do it, but I would love the environment to build it from scratch. And that was the answer I gave, and I got the job. I'm giving them a reason why I want to work there. And, you know, it can be about the company, it can be about the role itself, it can be about the sector, but just try and find a good reason why you want to work there. The fourth most common interview question is, why should we hire you? Now, again, I don't think this is a great interview question, but the way I would answer that one is, again, look through the job description, look through the company website and the careers website, and find out what is important to them and what experience and skills you've got that will help them improve the thing that they're trying to improve or solve the problem that they're trying to solve. So an example, you might say that I've looked on your careers website and I can see that client satisfaction is really important to you. In my previous role, I increased client satisfaction scores from 62% to 89%. And this is what I did to do it. So when they're asking, why should we hire you? Tell them the reason why they should hire you, i.e. this is important to you and I'm good at this, but then some evidence to back it up, ideally with numbers. And that's all you need to do to answer that why should we hire you question. And there's loads of different variations of how you can answer it. But go in, again, as part of your research, go and look in the job description. go and look on the careers website and find out what problems that they are trying to solve. Because ultimately, that's why companies hire people, to solve problems for them or to do things for them. So try and find that thing that you're really good at, and you can evidence in numbers that you have achieved something really, really good in that space, and use that in the answer to why should we hire you. So the next one, number 5 in the most common interview questions, is how do you perform under pressure? Now, you can't just say, I thrive under pressure. You have to give an example. So it might be that in the past there has been a particular project that had either a very demanding client, or you didn't have much resource or much budget, or you had a really difficult stakeholder, or you were up against the clock with some really tight deadlines. What the interviewer wants to know is what you did in that environment and what was the outcome. They don't just want to know that you thrive under pressure or you excel under pressure. They want an example. So always give an example, and that goes for most interview questions, is always give an example of how you have acted in that situation in the past, because it gives them a good idea that that is how you handle those types of situations. Number 6, describe a difficult situation at work and how you approached it. Now, try and think of an example that is relevant to the role that you're applying for. So if you are applying for a sales role, don't give an example about a time when you managed a really difficult customer. You want to give them an example that's relevant to sales. Likewise, if I got asked this question and they asked me to describe a difficult situation at work and how I handled it, I wouldn't really start talking about something that wasn't related to my day job as a recruiter. I would give examples about difficult stakeholders that I've worked with, what solutions I came up with, what I did, and what the outcome was. So again, if you're applying for like a customer service type role, think about a time when you helped solve a problem for a customer, you gave them great service. Why did you do it that way, and what was the outcome? That's what they're looking for. They want to understand what you did, why you did it that way, and what the outcome was. The next question, it doesn't get asked as often as it used to do, but it is still one of the most common interview questions. It's, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Now, the reason they ask this question is they want to gauge your ambition. They kind of want to understand your career path, the stuff that you want to do, what you're interested in. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is they'll say something like, I want to be promoted, or, hopefully, I'll have your job, or I'll be the head of the department. Don't make it about positions and climbing that ladder. Make it more about wanting to excel in a particular field, or becoming an expert, or learning more about a particular field or a particular sector. It might be, I want to become an expert in X, Y, and Z. Or I want to learn more about ABC, but obviously make sure it's relevant to the role. Then the next question, which you will probably get asked, is what are your salary expectations? Now, the mistake that most people make here is they say, my current salary is X and I'm looking for Y. You don't need to tell them your current salary. It's completely irrelevant. There are 2 ways you can answer this question. The first way is you've done your research beforehand, and you know what the average salary is for the type of role that you're interviewing for. So you've done your research, you know that the average salary for the role you're applying for is 50k. So you would just answer, my salary expectations are 50k. Another way to answer this question, and it depends on how confident you are and how experienced you are in negotiating salary, is when they ask you what your salary expectations are, you reply with, what is the salary banding for the role? Now, they might come back to you and say the banding for the role is between 50k and 70k, depending on experience. You then ask another question. What is the difference between someone who is earning 50k and someone who earns 70k? What are the difference in skills and experience from the top earners to the people at the lower end of the band? Then the interviewer should start telling you, all the different skills and experience and attributes of someone who earns towards the upper end of that salary banding. Now, as they're talking, if you realise that all of the things they're talking about are actually up towards the upper end of that scale, then that's what your salary expectation should be. Even if you originally went in thinking you were looking for 55, if they start describing all of the things that you can do and it's towards the top end of that band, then that is the salary that you should state as your expectations. It may be way more than you were initially looking for, but if you have got the skills and experience that they are willing to pay for, then that is your number. So it might turn out that after they've reeled it all off, you think to yourself, right, you know what, I've not got all of those things, but I've got most of them. My salary expectations are 65k, and that 65k would be the answer that you give. Don't oversell yourself, don't undersell yourself. But then also never turn up to a job interview without knowing the salary range for the role beforehand. You should have been asked this question when you very first spoke to a recruiter or you very first spoke to somebody at the company before you've turned up for an interview. But regardless of whatever stage you get asked that question, choose one of those two ways to answer it. The next question that you will probably get asked is, why are you looking to leave your current role? Now, never ever badmouth your current employer or your previous employer. It's just not professional. And it's a little bit like going on a first date and then spending the next 5 or 10 minutes just slacking off your ex. It never lands well. You just never talk badly about somebody, whether that's an old boss or an old employer. Just be professional. Talk about your desire to grow or to develop a new challenge. A good example might be, I've really learned a lot where I've been. I'm so thankful for the time I spent there, but I'm looking to broaden my experience in another sector or another environment or a bigger type of company or whatever that might be, but obviously make it relevant to the role. And this final question, you will get asked in every single job interview that you go through. And it's normally at the end of the interview when they say, do you have any questions for us? Now, the mistake that most people make here is they try and ask clever questions to impress the interviewer. At this stage in the process, the interviewer has probably already made up their mind whether they're going to progress or not. This part is an opportunity for you to find out, is this role for me? If I get offered this job, do I want to take it? And there's loads of different types of questions you can ask. Don't ask really generic and vague questions like, what's the culture like here? Try and be more specific. Ask questions like, why do you enjoy working here? What do you think is the biggest challenge of working here? But you can also ask the behavioural questions as well. Tell me about the last person in your team that got promoted, because you will find out, is there an opportunity to get promoted here? Is there an opportunity for self-development and improvement? Or you could ask them, tell me about the best performer in your team. And the answer they give you will tell you a lot about what they like to work for as a manager. If they say, Lee is my best performer because he's always the first one in, he's always the last one to leave, he's available at the weekends if I need him, he's available pretty much 24/7, then that pretty much tells you that it's a type of culture where you're going to get no work-life balance. Whereas if they said, look, I'd say Lee's probably our highest performer. He's not afraid to try new things. He learns from his mistakes and he really, really cares about what he does and he gets really good results. That tells you that it's an environment where you will learn things and you've got the freedom to fail and you won't get a kick in every time you make a mistake. So that's a good question to ask as well. So always make sure you have a couple of good questions to ask towards the interview. And it's fine if you've not prepared those questions beforehand, because some of them might be picked up on in the process. So listen out for what the interviewer is saying about certain things and use that to find out more about something that they've said earlier on in the interview. One, it shows that you were listening, you were paying attention. But two, it might be something you want to find out more about. But remember, that last stage is to find out more about whether you want the job, should you get offered it or not. They are the 10 most common interview questions. You will probably be asked at least 4 or 5 of them in every single job interview that you go to. So it makes sense to prepare examples and prepare the answers to those questions. If you've enjoyed this video, there's a lot more of it coming. Do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Check out the links at my profile. I've got free CV templates, free job search guides. Follow me on other platforms. All of the links are there. I'll pop it in the first comment as well. But yeah, for more no-nonsense job search advice, do hit the subscribe button. Cheers.